imminent, that the U.S. needed to raise the debt ceiling, and if they didn't, it would be an economic disaster. For months, there's been hand-wringing, fear-mongering, all kinds of blaring headlines. But over the last few hours, late into the night last night, before the deadline, before Armageddon hit, the Senate passed the debt ceiling and spending agreement and sent it to President Biden's desk and avoided default. After all the stark warnings, all the hand-wringing, all the fake fights, false choices, scare tactics, it all seemed just a little bit anticlimactic. But there's a lesson in there. It's not about the making of mayhem and this kind of confusion. The lesson is, how do we actually deconstruct debt ceilings and deficit spending? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, when you have these kind of Armageddon moments, that end of the world as we know it, and all the catastrophes that were touted and fear-mongered, it's important to not just let the moment pass. That's what politicians are hoping, is that everyone says, oh, catastrophe averted, continue on with your regularly scheduled programming. And away everyone else goes into summer. I think the important thing for us to do is to deconstruct this a little bit, figure out how we got to this point, why we got out of it, and more importantly, what to watch for when we see this movie again, because it will come. And the reruns will be worse than the original. And so we have to look at all of that. And you'll recall back in January when really everyone started sounding the alarm bells, we said on this program, put your panic button away. Social Security checks are going to go out. Military is going to get paid. There was no part along the way that this was anything more than manufactured crisis and politics at its worst, not the country at its best. And so I wanted to deconstruct it because we went through the process. We talked about it over the last several months in terms of what was going to happen. There was, of course, over 100 days where nothing happened. The House had passed a bill. The Senate had done nothing. The president waited. Then finally they had a meeting. Then it went to staff. Then it came back to the principals in the room with Speaker McCarthy and President Biden. Then there were a very select few number of negotiators. Those broke off, came back on, another meeting, and on we've gone all the way until here we are. The president's going to sign the bill, and away we go. Now, did anything really change? No. Did we make great advancement? No, not even close. But we have to step back and say, okay, now what was that? What just happened and what didn't happen and why? So I not only want to go back to January, where we said, this is not happening, no panic button required, and watch the process roll out. I want to go back even further. First, I want to go back to December of last year. December of last year, Congress had not done its job to fund the government. Right before Christmas, as is usually the case, because that's the best time to get people to buckle and to buy in and sign off on spending before they race off to the Christmas holidays. And they did. And remember, at that point in the program, the Democrats were in charge of the House, the Senate, and the White House. And they put together what's called an omnibus spending package. Big, massive bill, nobody reads, done in the dead of night, extends spending and throws in all kinds of little Christmas ornaments and little gifts for everyone along the way. It's a lot of spending. And it keeps everything rolling. There was an opportunity right there, right then, to increase the debt ceiling. And the Democrats, in control of all three, passed. They said, nah, we'll kick this can down the road. We'll deal with it in the spring. We know we have probably until about June to get this done, so we'll just kick the can. And the can got kicked. Now, unless you think that is just a finger pointing at what the Democrats did not do in December, let's ratchet back just a little bit further. Because where this really began, this whole crisis that we watched unfold over the last several months and over the last few weeks, really began in September of 2022, when Congress once again chose not to do its job, to fund the government with 12 appropriations bills coming out of committee, voted on the floor of the House, voted on the floor of the Senate, and sent to the president to fund the government. So that's where this round really began. It was all the way back over a year ago when Congress, for I don't know how many consecutive years now, has not done their job. There are so few jobs that Congress has, as outlined in the Constitution. Funding the government's a pretty big deal. And it's really simple. There's 12 appropriations bills. What does that mean? Those are the ways that we fund the military, the way we fund social programs, the way we fund education, and on it goes. There's 12 of them. Work on those are supposed to begin every spring. Members of Congress are assigned to committees. They're expected to go to committee meetings and have hearings, debate the issues, and put forward an appropriations bill to fund that portion of the government. And then all of that is supposed to be completed by the time they get to September 30th, because the government's fiscal year begins on October the 1st. But last year, as has been the case under both Republicans and Democrats alike, for decades now, they've not done their job. And so the crisis that we were dealing with that wasn't going to happen because the United States has never defaulted on its payments, and it won't, and it didn't, is because Congress keeps spending and Congress doesn't do its job in terms of proper funding. And so it's this vicious cycle that we continue to go through. But the problem is the moment the crisis is over, everybody exhales, all the politicians leave town and go on a break, and then we're into summer, and then we're back into the fall. And, of course, fall is campaign season. And so we continue to perpetuate the problem. The real leadership we need is for someone to say, we need to stay in session and we need to get these things done so that we're not doing this in September. And this is where I put both a spoiler alert and a warning of a false warning. And so I want all of you to enjoy your summer vacations. I want you to have a fantastic time. And then I want you to remember, when you get back after Labor Day, a headline you will see is Congress only has 3 weeks to avoid a government shutdown. And there'll be scary music, and the gravelly voice guy will come on, and all of the cable news channels will talk about what catastrophes will happen to the country if the government is not funded by September, the end of September. And we're going to do the same dance, slightly different version, again in September. And so I want everyone to just recognize that we're just seeing this in repeat. And sometimes the leading actors and actresses change. Sometimes the voices are a little different. But we keep doing the same thing. And that is the very definition of insanity. And most of these catastrophes, calamities, whatever you want to call it, are manufactured. And what we need to do as citizens and what we need to demand of our politicians is to deconstruct that. And it all begins when Congress decides to do their job.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. We're lucky in Utah to enjoy all 4 seasons.
These storms, they bubble up and move quick, and then they zip on out.
Sometimes all in one day.
We did have a tornado warning that was issued.
June means everything from hailstorms to 100-degree days. That's why you need traffic and weather together. Every 10 minutes on the 9s on KSL News Radio.
Register for breaking news updates by texting the word news to the Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line at 57500.
I found, Tim, that one of the hardest things about being a mom is just deciding what to cook for dinner every night.
I know.
Which is part of why I'm so excited to tell everybody about Beehive Meals.
It is a Utah company, and at some point we're going to have to tell the story of the Jacksons and how they actually got this going in 2019. But if you've been struggling with having tacos one night and spaghetti another night, Open up your world for dinner with things like Mongolian beef stir fry or Parmesan honey pork roast.
Your family dinner has just never been easier than it is with these. They're pre-assembled freezer meals. I put it in the crock pot. I set it for how long it needs to go. It stays warm after that. And that way, if the family can't all eat together, if one person has basketball and another, it's just warm for whenever they're ready.
And by the way, less than $3.50 per serving. You couldn't go out to the store or out to dinner, certainly on your own, for that price.
You're absolutely right, Tim. I couldn't buy the ingredients for any less.
Start it for your family right now. Go to beehivemeals.com.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Men, you fought hard for the role that you play in your children's lives. This Father's Day, Cordell & Cordell celebrates you the entire month of June. Join us every Friday for our live webinar series, Father's Fridays. There you'll receive much useful information from our panel of speakers. To register, go to CordellCordell.com/Father's Day.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Salt Lake City area attorneys. 910 West Legacy Center Way, Suite 120, Midvale, Utah, 84047.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Here's what happens when you get brand new custom vinyl windows from Advanced Window Products. All of a sudden, your house has more curb appeal. Your home is more secure. Your heating and air conditioning bills tumble, and you have a local company in business 37 years standing behind their work for life. But that's not all. Since they build your custom windows at their facility in Salt Lake, there's no middleman markup. So you can save money on the highest quality windows on the market. Argon-filled double-pane glass. Insulation within the vinyl framing. Top of the line, built to spec. They will create magnificent bow windows, doggy doors cut into the glass. Any color, it's all custom, all installed by their team, and every window is guaranteed for life. Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. Advanced Windows offers 60-month, 0% financing, and right now, save $2,000 on 10 windows or more. So save now, pay later. Call Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
It's Free Frazzle Friday. Visit any participating location to get a 12-ounce cup of Frazzle slushie today. Go to FreeFrazzleFriday.com or download the Frazzle app for participating locations while supplies last.
What I learned from Soda Weight Loss when I lost this 34 pounds and have kept it off for, a year and a half now, is that weight loss starts and ends in the kitchen. It is what you eat. Should you exercise? Yes, absolutely you should. And they encouraged me to walk, and I do walk. In fact, I swim now. I exercise more. But it starts and ends with the food choices you make. And I was just a dumb eater. I thought I was a good eater. I'd eat oatmeal and yogurt and granola, and I thought that was good. I had to wipe all that out for the time that I lost weight. Now that I'm on maintenance, I can include things back in, but it's about the food.
Yeah, SOTA is spelled S-O-T-A, and it really is about science. State of the art is what it stands for, and my daughter lost 42 pounds. Here's the great thing. You do get more energy, so you actually help yourself in keeping that weight off by moving more and doing the things you enjoy, like swimming for you. Go to SOTAWeightLoss.com. It's spelled S-O-T-A. Think Tim and Amanda. SOTA Weight Loss is state of the art.
Join KSL in the Greenhouse Show this Saturday at the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District Garden Fair. The district's Learning Garden is at Highway 89 and 193 in Layton. It's a free event from 8 to 2.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, some advocates in the LGBTQ community say Governor Cox left out an important phrase in his Pride Week declaration. Second, expect traffic delays this weekend in Davis County on Legacy and Highway 89. And third, authorities in Mexico say they've discovered 25 human bodies at the bottom of a cliff in the state of Jalisco. Right now, 67 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We're going to take a little step off of the beaten path. We often say that the road less traveled is the road best traveled. And often when we're dealing with friends or family or loved ones or colleagues and something has gone wrong, they're hurting, a death in the family, a loss of a job, a relationship ends, whatever it might be, we do have this innate desire or urge to fix it. to solve it, to make it better. And I think we often hear echoing in our heads, maybe something our mothers yelled at us when we were little, to don't just stand there, do something. And sometimes the right answer to help somebody in need might be to not do something, stand there. And we're going to break all of that down and look at some interesting things over the next two segments. So you want to stick around for a crucial conversation, an enlightened conversation with our good friend Rabbi Joe Charnas, who is a Jewish teacher and scholar devoted to interfaith dialogue and engagement, joining us from California. And Rabbi Joe, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Boyd. Appreciate it.
And so as we start this whole thing, and you've experienced this in so many different settings, we do have this natural inclination to just want to fix things or to solve it or to say it will be okay. You shared with me a couple of weeks ago something from Job that I think a lot of us miss. We always think of all of the problems, the challenges, the trials that Job has, but there's some pretty interesting lessons in terms of how do you help someone going through those trials?
Yeah, that was a beautiful conversation, and thank you for wanting to revisit it with a broader audience so we can all hopefully learn what Job has to offer us. And Job, the book of Job, not many people read, or they don't read it deeply. And Job is a genuine masterpiece, not because I am Jewish and it's part of my Bible. Victor Hugo, Carlyle, Tennyson, they speak of Job in the most exalted manner, that it is one of the or the greatest poem ever written when understood fully and broadly. And it applies to all of us as human beings, regardless of our faith, tradition, or background. And one thing that I can offer from the Jewish tradition, I do speak obviously through the prism of the Jewish faith, but I hope I speak in a way that we as human beings can all relate to. The details in Job are often remembered and they're reflected upon. But in Judaism, the details of the story are not simply describing. They're not simply the descriptive. They're also prescriptive. This is how I think, broadly speaking, Judaism often reads a text. The details are there, yes, but they're directives. And they are guiding us how we can walk through life more fully. And so in this story of Job, in the second chapter, anyway, the friends of Job come to visit him from afar. And he's suffered all of the plagues and the loss of his family and his fortune, and he is in dire, dire straits. So in chapter 2, verse 11 through 13, it speaks of Job's friends hearing. I'll just read it from everybody likes the ESV translation, but it speaks of Job's three friends heard of all the evil or the suffering that had come upon him, and they came, each from his own place. His three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. But what's interesting here is that they came. They didn't just come to visit him. They came each, in the Hebrew, from his own place. They each have a place that they are coming from.
Right.
And this is critical for us when we are going to another person. How can I come to a person? I'm not going, I am coming from a place. And I am going to another place right now for this person who is in loss, for a person who is suffering. But the first and most important, I think, detail and instructive aspect of the story is that they came, each person from his own place, and when they came, they came to show sympathy and comfort. And that word for sympathy in the Hebrew is it's not a very clear word in terms of its usage, but we have a sense. And one dimension has to do with in showing the sympathy for him, to comfort him. The word sympathy doesn't actually capture what aspect of the verb is trying to convey, which is they were coming shaking their heads, is one nuance of the verb. They were in such shock, such horror at what they saw, at what they heard. And that's the critical, I think, step in coming to another person to help them and comfort them.
Yeah.
And then in verse 12, and we often miss that. We simply come and we show up.
Right.
But they're coming with disbelief, with shock, with pain, with angst. That's how we have to come to another person who is in that same place so that we can be with them. Not say anything, just be with them.
Right.
And when they saw him from a distance is the language. They saw him from a distance. Well, it could mean they saw him far away. They saw he was far, and they saw him, and they didn't recognize him. That's the language.
Yeah.
I think a deeper sense is trying to be conveyed here is that, of course, they recognized him. They knew who he was. It's Job, their friend. But he was unrecognizable because of his sorrow, his loss, his pain.
Right.
And so they are coming to him. He's not recognizable because he is now distanced from who he is. And our goal in comfort is simply to come back to the person where they are, not to say anything, to come where they are. And briefly it says next that they tore their garments, they raised their voice, and they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word. So the key thought I'll leave you with in this portion is when they came to him, they sat. They didn't speak. They sat.
That's so
important. And the word there it is, Boyd, you're right. And the word for with, there are a few words in Hebrew for with, and there is a debate over this word. This word, according to some commentators, is a deep identifying withness, an intimate witness. And that's what it's conveying to us. When we go to a person who is in grief, we can just sit there. But are we with them? Are we dwelling with them? Or are we simply functionally there?
Right.
More importantly,
I'm going to have you pause right there, Rabbi. Just listeners that are just joining us, we're with Rabbi Joe Charnas. We're talking about this, how we actually are with people, especially those that might be in grief or struggling or having a difficulty of some sort. We've been looking at the example from the Bible of Job, and so many important lessons there in terms of the friends that they came from their own place. I think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind as we interact with us. We come from a place. I love the fact that the three friends made an appointment together. I think that's what ministering looks like. You're actually coming intentionally. It was purposefully. It wasn't just, maybe we'll show up because we have an extra minute. It was very intentional. And then that they were with him. And we're going to pick up on this when we come back from the break. We're going to continue our conversation with Rabbi Joe Charnas because that is what we do. We're going to stay with the conversation, and we're going to get into this essence of what it means to just be with someone and to give them one of the most important things we can, our presence, our full attention. Stay with us. More coming up with Rabbi Joe Charnas on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. The construction of the West Davis Highway continues. UDOT spokesperson John Gleason says the project's on his way to be completed next year.
In the years to come, people are going to recognize just how useful it is.
What that means is that Highway 89 between South Weber and Highway 193 will be reduced to one lane from tonight at midnight through early Monday, along with traffic restrictions on the new portion of the West Davis corridor. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. There was a partial collapse of a building under construction in New Haven, Connecticut today. Fire Chief John Alston says this happened during a concrete pour at the site.
Our units responded immediately within minutes and found several persons in varying degrees of injury, from broken bones to 3 that were partially buried under the rubble.
In all, 7 people were injured. 2 are in critical condition. Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average having a strong up day, 708 points in positive territory right now. And the NASDAQ up 135 points. Our weather is still the thunderstorms marching through every afternoon. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Amanda Dixon here, broadcasting live from the Holiday Oil in Lehigh. And it's Free Frazzle Friday. I'm with Sam Owens. Sam, I have seen so many wonderful families coming. All the kids pile out of the van. Everybody gets a free frazzle.
Yeah, it's been a little overwhelming. In a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way.
And then they'll come out and they'll tell me, I got blue razzmatazz. I got tiger's blood.
Yeah.
Tiger's blood, very popular.
That's right. Yes. Yep. That's actually our number one flavor. So that one gets a lot of play.
I can see why.
Yeah.
That's like a strawberry coconut. Well, I don't want to describe it. You just come have one because you're giving away free frazzles to everybody today.
That's right. Yep. Limit one per person while supplies last, of course. But yeah, every Friday in June.
Every Friday in
12
June.
12-ounce free frazzle. Come check it out.
Now, I shouldn't say it's just for kids because I've seen people my age and older come in for a free frazzle.
Oh, no. Yeah,
and I'm thinking,
is all ages.
We worked hard this week, doggone it.
Right.
We deserve a free frazzle.
Oh, yeah. No, we see a lot of people in the older ages that love frazzle. I actually have my father-in-law tried it for the first time last summer, and then the next day I come over to his house, and he's got another one.
Yes.
So he kind of got hooked, too. He's pushing 80.
I don't like Slurpees, but I love frazzle.
Yeah.
And so I want you to come try one. There are free frazzles at Holiday Oil, Maverick, Extra Mile, Top Stop, but you can find out where the closest one is to you at freefrazzlefriday.com.
Our state's children face a serious threat from the vaping industry. But thanks to state leaders and the Utah Health Department, Utah established the strictest nicotine standards for vaping in the United States to protect our kids. However, the vaping industry sued, claiming their sales and profits are down. Now they're pushing the Health Department to hand control of vaping regulations to the federal government. We can't allow that to happen. The proposed change would automatically increase nicotine levels in vape pens and reintroduce fruity flavors that entice our kids back into Utah convenience stores. Visit StopKidsVaping.com today and make your voice heard. Utah should maintain state control, preserve our 3% nicotine limitations, and prevent vaping flavors from returning to Utah convenience stores. Together, we can secure a better future for our children. Join us at StopKidsVaping.com and tell the Health Department, protect our kids.
Paid for by Prosperous Utah Communities.
With our roots in northern Utah, Holy Cross Hospital has a legacy of caring to help every person be whole and healthy. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
At Holy Cross Hospital, we're honored to carry the legacy of our namesake and equally honored to care for northern Utah's vibrant communities. Find us at 5 Holy Cross Hospital locations and more than 45 clinics along the Wasatch Front. Learn more at holycrossutah.org.
Progressive presents an ad from Mom.
When you bundle your home and auto insurance with Progressive, bundle, that's a cute word. What? Read it again? Okay. When you bundle your home and auto insurance with Progressive, you get round-the-clock protection. Oh, that's darn good. Because once my older sister Dottie, her basement flooded.
Get round-the-clock protection when you bundle and save with Progressive. It's easier than getting your mom to make this radio ad. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
It's Free Frazzle Friday. Visit any participating location to get a 12-ounce cup of Frazzle slushie today. Go to freefrazzlefriday.com or download the Frazzle app for participating locations while supplies last.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
Salt Lake City PD working an accident, 2100 South near 11th East at McClellan Street. Salt Lake County freeways all look good if you're headed south. Delays possible southbound I-15 going through Nephi. Join Olson's Greenhouse in welcoming spring with colorful flowers to beautify your porch and yard. Find a garden center near you that carries Olson's plants at ogg.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, well, we were seeing these thunderstorms march through pretty much every afternoon. Will look like another one here this afternoon. And that will continue over the next several days. Right now, it's 71 degrees, mostly cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. We're staying with the conversation just a little bit longer. Remember, Einstein, I think, said it best, that it wasn't that he was any smarter than anyone else. It's just that he was willing to stay with the question a little longer. And we're staying with the question, this whole idea of the need or the desire we have to fix things when we have a neighbor in need or a friend with a problem or a discouraging situation, whatever it might be. We want to fix. We want to fix. But what we really need to do is step back and be present. And everything starts to change from there. So we're going to continue our conversation with Rabbi Joe Charnas, a Jewish teacher and scholar devoted to interfaith dialogue and engagement, and someone that I look to have elevated conversations on a wide range of things. And Rabbi Joe, just before the break, we had gone through Job, and most people, regardless of faith tradition, know about Job and all that he lost and the trials and tests that he faced. And we've been going through this scenario where his three friends come to comfort him. And we were just going through the fact, one, they came from afar. They were in tune enough to know they were needed there. And then they came, and I want to get into what they did when they actually got there. They didn't say, you're going to be okay, you got this. They did something quite different.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And to lead into that, when they came to him from afar, each from his own place, the critical, I think, detail that must be instructive for us, we must highlight this detail, is that each one came from his own place. I think the Bible here is trying to highlight for us that we each have a place to come from that can bring something to another person. But we have to be rooted in our place. We have to have grounding.
Yeah.
That's his or her own place. And they came together to show sympathy and to shake their heads and comfort. But they didn't. How often when we see a person, they're not recognizable. That's the beauty of verse 12. They saw him from a distance, and they didn't recognize him because Job wasn't in his place. He was uprooted from life. And so he was distanced from himself, so they couldn't recognize him in his former glory. And we'll skip over the dust and the tearing of the robes, but they sat with him. And again, according to some commentators, that word for sitting with is intimate witness, not sitting by, but with. But notice what they didn't do, as you said. They didn't say, he's in a better place, or they're in a better place, or God wouldn't give you a test that you can't withstand, or it's all going to turn out for the best. Those may all be true. But at this point in time, all they did was, in verse 12, they raised their voices, they wept, they tore their robes, and they sprinkled dust over their heads towards heaven, and sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. Judaism has the tradition of mourning by sitting on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights, because symbolically, again, that's the detail, but the symbolism behind that is we can't go any lower.
Yeah.
That's the directive for us to face that. And what happens next is always the problem for us. I'm sitting with you, and what do I say? So the beautiful, beautiful insight from Job chapter 2, verse 13, this last little section of the Three Friends episode, as far as the intro at least. They sat with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him. And they saw, and it gives a reason, they saw that his suffering was very great. The goal for all of us, we have noble hearts, compassionate hearts, wanting to help. We want to help. The problem is words aren't the way.
Yeah.
The text here is simply, they sat with, deeply with him, in silence and in sorrow. And the key word there is with.
Yeah. So
silence. That says everything. That says it all, because there's nothing we can say. But I am here by sitting with you.
Yeah, and I want to expand that out now a little bit in terms of kind of how we do that day to day. I think that sitting with and saying nothing. I think those two components, in and of itself, we could spend weeks just on that element and how that plays out in our daily lives. If we really are with people and we're willing to be still and be silent with people, that's where we can actually do the most good. Because I'm still convinced that one of the most holy and sacred things we can give to another person is that being totally present, giving full attention to. Help us kind of broaden this out now, Rabbi, in terms of how this applies to all of us in terms of being present with the people around us.
Beyond the immediate context of mourning and grieving. Now it's just broad witness, simply being with another person wherever they are, in their place. Presence. So I would use the word presence. How can we be present? I think it's a beautiful way of understanding the word presence is through the prism of the Hebrew language. One of the Hebrew words for presence, biblically speaking, actually is your face, is face, F-A-C-E. The word face in Hebrew is presence. In fact, there's a verse in the book of Exodus in chapter 33 when God speaks to Moses and he doesn't say, I will go with you and give you rest. He says literally, I don't know how they do it in English, but I'm telling you, literally, it says ponai, my face, or my face is literally, they will go with you. So the first key right here for all of us is how often are we even facing another person? Right. My presence is almost always obvious by my face. My face. Am I facing you?
Yeah.
If I'm not facing you, either outwardly or certainly within my inner face, there's no presence. But if my face will go with you, that's my presence. And in the Aramaic translation of that, we're not going into deep theology here, but the Aramaic translation of that language of my face, of the language my face, uses the word for, in English, they say it's Shekinah, right? The glorious presence, the indwelling presence of God. That's the Aramaic translation in this context of face, because that's the glorious presence.
Yeah.
How can we bring our glorious presence to another person? Simply by facing them, by seeing their face, by seeing their glory, by understanding there is another person before me. You're not faceless. You are a face, you are a person. And how can we begin to connect with each other? And how can my face go with you? Not can I walk with you, but how can my face, my presence, be with you? It's a wonderful meditation, I think, that will help us face each other more fully.
I love that. I love that. Rabbi Joe Charnas, Jewish teacher and scholar devoted to interfaith dialogue and engagement. We're going to continue this conversation over the next couple of weeks because I think this is one where we get so sideways so fast, and if we can't be present with people, if we can't really turn our face toward them and be with them, it's really hard to get to those meaningful places and spaces in terms of dialogue, connection, and helping everyone move to higher ground. Rabbi Joe, thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. Shabbat Shalom to you, rolling into the Sabbath.
Look forward to it.
And we look forward to having you back soon. All right, that's Rabbi Joe Charnas. We'll go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue on a Friday here on Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Avoid wet heads.
Cloudburst dropping a ton of rain.
And the bad hair day.
Gusty wind and hail.
Get ready for whatever is headed for your head.
What has happened to your hair?
Before you head out, make us a part of your morning routine. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s on KSL News Radio.
It is Free Frazzle Friday. It's Amanda Dixon here at the Holiday Oil in Lehigh, and I'm with Sam Owens. You know what I think about Frazzle now? I mean, life is about looking forward to things. And now I have something that I really love, that I can give myself a little reward, a little something to look forward to.
That's right. I feel the same way. In fact, I mean, it's summer now, but even in February, I'm like, you know what? I need a little piece of summer.
I just need a little something.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is.
I walked into Holiday Oil and I saw all 8 of these beautiful flavors of Frazzle. You have so many flavors.
Yeah, we have something like 15 at a time. We rotate them in and out, but yeah, we have a lot of flavors. We actually have all these machines at our corporate headquarters where you can go and just try any flavor, so the employees, they like that.
Oh,
big perk.
I bet.
It's a big perk of working there.
Well, it's not just today. It's every Friday in June you're giving away free Frazzle.
Every Friday in June. That's right.
It's a mouthful.
I know it is. Free Frazzle Friday. Say that 10 times fast. But yeah, every Friday in June. Yeah, we're doing it.
And we're here at Holiday Oil, but they're also available at Maverick and Extra Mile and Top Stop all over the state, right?
Yeah, that's right. If you go to freefrazzlefriday.com, you can there's a store locator on there, and you can see who is participating across the state close to you.
This is not just a kid's drink. This is a drink for all of us, including those of us who worked hard this week and deserve a treat.
That's right. Exactly.
Thank you for having us, Sam.
Thank you for being here.
Stop by on your way home and get yourself a free Frazzle Friday.
So you just used bug spray in your home. Now what? Well, between the waiting and waiting for things to dry up and keeping your family away from the mess, it hits you. You could have used Zevo. Unlike other bug sprays that stick around, Zevo goes from kill to clean in seconds. Plus, it's safe for use around people and pets when used as directed. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
Turn your home into restricted airspace. Tell incoming flights you want them diverted. The new Raid Essentials Light Trap plugs into the wall and uses light to attract, then trap flying insects like fruit flies and mosquitoes. Its 24/7 continuous attraction provides insecticide-free protection that's people and pet friendly. Consider air service interrupted. New Raid Essentials Light Trap, insecticide-free protection.
Introducing Yes Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. We're bringing all of Utah's favorite HVAC, plumbing, and electrical brands under one roof. The same people you know and trust, providing Utah with the same great service you've counted on for more than 45 years. We're even throwing in a great offer for you. Say yes and beat the summer heat with our $49 tune-up special. For all your heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical needs, you can always count on Yes. Visit theyesmancan.com to schedule your appointment.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. If you've ever been burned out on your job, you know about this. Burnout is more about how you do your job than about how long you work. In fact, burnout is not caused by the job. It's caused by the stress that might be related to your job. You can quit burnout without quitting your job. Find new ways to renew, not just rest. Relinquish parts of your responsibility to others. Find new rewards, such as mentoring others. And rework your work by doing something that's different. Do something different with an MBA from Utah State University. Learn more by going to utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
It's Free Frazzle Friday. Visit any participating location to get a 12-ounce cup of Frazzle slushie today. Go to freefrazzlefriday.com or download the Frazzle app for participating locations while supplies last.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio is your window to the outside world, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio, or listen on the KSL News Radio app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Pride Month is underway in Salt Lake, and one participant says he's enjoyed all the events going back decades. Second, highway construction will slow drivers on Legacy Parkway and Highway 89 in Davis County this weekend. Third, 7 people were injured in the partial collapse of a building under construction in New Haven, Connecticut. Right now, 71 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Well, it's that time of the week. It's our weekly deep dive into presidential politics. As we always preface this segment, trying to understand the behavior of someone running for president is like trying to smell the color 7. Noodle on that. If you're driving along, don't crash. Obviously, a lot happening with people running for president. And a lot of times you just can't figure out what they're thinking or what they're striving to do. But we're going to try to help you navigate all of that as we go through this, what will be a very interesting presidential cycle. And, of course, this week, even more Republicans either jumped in or are preparing to jump in or are talking about jumping in. And, of course, we anticipate that early next week, the former Vice President, Mike Pence, and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie are expected to make formal announcements as we roll into the week next week. Joe Biden, of course, made his formal announcement and has not done anything campaign-wise since. So we have no sound to share with the president from the campaign trail because he has not stepped foot upon it. He's been doing a lot of Rose Garden politicking, as they like to say, doing events in the Rose Garden. So it looks more like governing than it does politics. But a lot of those messages are being sent, and we'll break those down as we go. And so now that we've got some things in the rearview mirror as it relates to the governing portion of the job, we've got the debt ceiling and spending bill done. The president will sign that today or early tomorrow. He's going to speak to the nation later today. You can listen to snippets of that as that comes out later here on KSL News Radio. But let's jump into where are we? And earlier this week, we had our friend Carly Cooperman, CEO of Schoen Cooperman Research, one of the great polling organizations in the country. We were talking about some of the primary challengers on the Democratic side of the aisle. Obviously, President Biden goes in with a big war chest. It goes in with all the structure that goes with being the president of the United States. And it was interesting as you look at some of those in the race already on the Democratic side. Some are polling quite well when it comes to favorability, especially compared to the president. Here's what Carly Cooperman had to say about what those poll numbers might mean in terms of their chances against the president.
While I don't think these Democratic primary challengers pose a serious threat at this point, he's got to be careful because if it gets to the point where they can get enough support and energy and attention, the last thing that Biden wants to do is be in a position where he has to debate them and really give air and fuel to their candidacy.
So really important there. I think Carly's right in terms of what threat they really are. But these numbers are pretty interesting. In that they have very high favorabilities, and they're polling quite well. And as we always say, it's not about the polls at this point. It's about the process. It's organizing, it's fundraising, and it's messaging, and that will be the test. So one of those challenging the president is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let's go to what he said this week during an interview with Neil Cavuto. He gave his reasonings as to why he's running against a sitting president and friend of the Kennedy family, Joe Biden.
Ultimately, I'm in a much better position to beat Donald Trump than Joe Biden is. I also just disagree with him on basic issues like my father did with Lyndon Johnson. I think what we're doing in this war is unnecessarily prolonging it and unnecessarily hiking up the bloodshed. I disagree with that. I disagree with some of the public health policies of this administration. So I think, like my dad ran on principle, he did not believe that he could win. And his objective was to tell the truth to the American people, and that's what I'm going to do. And if there's an appetite for that, I'll be in the White House in 2025.
So very interesting insight there from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as to why he's in the race against the sitting president of his own party. And again, longtime family friend there for the Kennedy clan. And just really interesting, though, I really appreciate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking about how his father went about the race, not worried about whether or not he would win, but that he was determined to run on principle, that he was going to tell the truth. And if there's an appetite for that, then the winning takes care of itself. That's actually a fantastic message from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for everyone across the political spectrum. That if you run on principle and you tell the truth, and there's an appetite for that, you win. And that's the only way you really win and get to lead. You can win a campaign with a whole lot of promises and a whole lot of vibrato and a whole lot of deception and distraction, but that doesn't mean you get to lead. That doesn't mean you get to be coming days. One of the newer entrants, of course, is the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, during a recent speech in Iowa. Governor DeSantis decided to stop staying quiet in responses to attacks that were being leveled from the former President Donald Trump. And here's what he had to say about the former president.
He used to say how great Florida was. His whole family moved to Florida under my governorship. Are you kidding me? It's also the case that we won the biggest election landslide that Florida Republicans have ever won. And did he ever say anything like, good job? No, he attacked me 3 days before the midterm election. And so I'm just thinking to myself, as a Florida resident, I would be cheering for that. If you put the mission first, you would definitely be cheering for that.
So an interesting component, mission first. I think you're going to hear that more from Governor DeSantis. I think that's going to be a line that they'll continue to test as they go through the summer. And then as you get to the fall and things get into a little sharper focus, I think you'll see some messaging around that mission first idea, of course, with Governor DeSantis and his military background. And we'll continue to watch. It's really interesting. We'll have this 100 days basically from now until Labor Day. And then when things get back, there will be the first of the Republican debates will take place in August in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And that's going to be a very interesting one. We'll have a whole host of Republicans on the stage. It might be very reminiscent of 2016. You'll have UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, the former vice president, will be in by then. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott will be there. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who also made some very interesting comments during the course of the week in terms of why he's running and why that matters. You've got Michigan businessman Perry Johnson. You got author Vivek Ramaswamy, and of course former California gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder. So the group is growing, and that's going to create some interesting dynamics and challenges. So we saw that in 2016 in terms of who gets voice and what do you have to do to get attention, and that's the challenge. And so as we move into next week, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we always talk about process because process matters. And the process that's going to be most important for all of these candidates on both sides of the aisle over the next 100 days is going to come down to, can they fundraise? Can they organize? Can they get people on the ground in the critical spaces? And then can they get the right message that will break through and be heard by the American people after Labor Day? All right, well, that wraps up our special section we do every Friday here on Inside Sources. We take our inside look at presidential politics, and that also rounds out hour number one of Inside Sources. We'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. Much more to come on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, been an active spring for thunderstorms. Turns out this is actually what's considered normal. KSL meteorologist Kevin Eubank says the difference this year is how long the storms have stuck around.
These were actual little stalled frontal boundaries which never moved. So that moisture stayed there for multiple days on end, and then each day they fired up these afternoon thunderstorms.
Kevin says it seems like a lot of storms since we're coming out of some very dry years. It's Pride Weekend here in Salt Lake City. A Utah resident for more than 30 years, Stuart Graves, says he's seen the Pride celebrations grow throughout his time.
The first few years, you were kind of afraid to go. Sometimes you'd be outnumbered, or there'd be almost as many protesters as participants, and it's just not that way anymore.
Graves says he believes it helps when allies and community members join the events, including Sunday's Pride Parade. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A new warning from the FDA about the dangers of using off-brand versions of drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy for weight loss. Dr. Veronica Johnson with Northwestern Medicine says compounded versions of those drugs are not a substitute for the approved form.
If a patient elects to use a compounded form of the medication, we cannot guarantee what's actually in that drug.
And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 701 points on the day right now. The NASDAQ up 139 points as we near the close of trading. And our KSL weather, yeah, we're having more of those thunderstorms. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
We have enough people running around Broadcast House at 4 in the morning to field a football team.
Producers, reporters, the traffic team, and us.
This is Tim and Amanda.
Join us each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Register for breaking news updates by texting the word news to the Cyprus Credit Union KSL text line at 57500.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
At SimpliSafe, we know during a break-in, every second counts. So our home security system is powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who use Fast Protect technology, only from SimpliSafe, to capture video evidence and verify a threat for fast police response. Now, install SimpliSafe your way. Do it yourself or have an expert set it up for you with new Pro Install. Get 20% off any new system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplisafe.com/radio. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
Can an insurance bot ever really understand your needs?
Do you think I'd benefit from bundling my auto and home coverage?
Searching for homes with car dealerships nearby.
Sure, robots listen, but do they understand you? At Farm Bureau Financial Services, we'll help you save money and time by bundling your auto and home insurance. Find an agent at fbfs.com/protect. It's your future. Let's protect it. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agricultural Insurance Company.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. The other night, Dee and I had the most amazing evening of entertainment at Hale Center Theater as we enjoyed Hello, Dolly. It won 10 Tony Awards. Presentation on the Hale Center Theater main stage is simply remarkable. And you forget how many wonderful songs are included in Hello, Dolly. Of course, the headliner, Hello, Dolly, but also It Only Takes a Moment and so much more. Don't miss your chance to see Hale Center Theater's presentation of Hello, Dolly. And just down the hall, it's Hans Christian Andersen in New York. Don't forget, coming up, too, we've got Mary Poppins Jr., Newsies, and, of course, Catch Me If You Can. That's a murder mystery. Around the World in 80 Days. And as we head into the holidays at the end of the year, it will be Elf the Musical. Do not miss out. Get your tickets now for Hale Center Theater's Hello, Dolly by going to hct.org.
If you've got a honey-do list with electrical, plumbing, heating, or air conditioning projects on it, Any Hour Services can help. Call Any Hour Services, electrical, plumbing, heating, and air. anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
Getting reports of a possible accident about 2600 West, 4100 South. For those on southbound I-15, delays in Kaysville for Davis County drivers. Not sure what's causing it, but definitely rain is not helping. It's Free Frazzle Friday. Visit any participating location to get a 12-ounce cup of Frazzle Slushy for free. Go to freefrazzlefriday.com or download the Frazzle app for participating locations while supplies last. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And our KSL weather, more showers today, thunderstorms this afternoon, and the pattern of afternoon storms will continue into next week. And right now, it's 70 degrees and mostly cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, this weekend, the Republican presidential candidates are going to be in Iowa for the most part, participating in the annual Roast and Ride event, opportunity to ride some motorcycles and do some grilling with Senator Joni Ernst and others across the state of Iowa. Of course, they're attempting to boost their presence for that critical early Iowa caucus. Iowa is, of course, important to those all the candidates, but the second-tier candidates, so to speak, often have a difficult chance in terms of breaking through. Iowa's a place where they often can. And we want to look in this segment to look at how do we actually see that happening? What does that look like? Many, of course, are focused on the broad polling numbers, which show more of the former president and the current governor of Florida as the top tier. But we know that it's not just the polls, especially at this point in the game. There's some other really crucial factors that will determine if anyone can break through, catch momentum, or even ride a wave all the way into the White House. Michael Warren's a senior editor for the Dispatch, and a great piece talking about how some of these candidates on the Republican side can actually have a strategy to break through. And Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Boyd, thanks so much for having me.
So let's dig into this. Obviously, you have those that are polling at the top. The former president and the current governor of Florida are up there. But let's get underneath. What are the keys to the strategy for those who are trying to break through and maybe become that potential leading candidate?
Well, Boyd, I talked to a lot of Republican strategists who have been there, who have done this before, and it's still early, but it still requires, some actual action from these candidates. I call them the also-runnings. They've got quite a busy summer. The next couple of months are going to be crucial for these guys. And I sort of break it down into three different benchmarks that they really have to start trying to meet. The first is obviously fundraising. They've got to raise enough money. You've got Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis who have really got enough money to go the distance, and they will have the ability, if they continue to do well, if they continue to poll well, to keep getting those precious fundraising dollars. So if you want to break through and challenge DeSantis and Trump, you've got to raise money. The second thing is the organizing and the pressing the flesh, really, in the early states. You mentioned the roast and ride in Iowa. A number of candidates and soon-to-be candidates are going to be there this weekend. New Hampshire is obviously the other state you've got to be at. You've also got to be sort of finding your precinct captains, the people who you're going to rely on, particularly in Iowa, to get people out at those caucuses. And then finally, of course, is prepping for those debates. And the first one, which we expect to be in August in Milwaukee, sponsored by the RNC, you got to sort of build the foundation with those first two and then use that moment, which may just be one moment if you're polling at less than 1%, that moment in the debate to make an impression on a national audience that will drive how people view you, even in those early states like Iowa and New Hampshire and beyond.
Yeah, and that's so important. It's that it is that moment. It's that tap on the shoulder moment. You don't know when it's coming, but you better be ready and you better be prepared. Opportunity always favors the prepared. And so let's dig into some of these things. And you did such a beautiful job with this in your piece at the Dispatch today. And I encourage people to go check that out. It's where we always go for just solid analysis, great reporting, and it's great writing, which is becoming a lost art in the world today. But in your piece there, let's talk about the fundraising component to it. You mentioned the big dollars that, of course, the former President Trump and Ron DeSantis have right now. Go to that next level of running. What do the dollars and cents look like for those candidates?
Well, Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, is in somewhat of a different category than the other second-tier candidates. He ran for office in 2022 for re-election to the Senate. He didn't really have a Democratic opponent that threatened him. He won overwhelmingly, I think something like almost 60% of the vote in South Carolina. And what did he come out with? He came out with $22 million of federal money raised under federal fundraising rules that he can just use in his presidential campaign. So he's got an advantage there. He's also got a super PAC that's being backed by some untold amount of money from Larry Ellison, one of the richest men in the world, co-founder of Oracle. And so he's in maybe a different category, and his team really thinks they have the money to go the distance. After that, it gets a little unclear. You've got Nikki Haley, who's been in the race as a candidate since February. She's raised some money, but maybe not quite enough. It's something a little over $8 million she's got across a couple of committees and her campaign. And she's really, I think that's the candidate we're going to want to watch at the end of June when those second quarter of 2023 reports come out. Is she raising the right amount of money? I saw her actually earlier this week. She was speaking at a Connecticut state party event. I asked her team, well, what is she doing in Connecticut? Not really a early primary state. Of course, she was meeting also with donors in the New York area, in New York and Connecticut. That's something she's going to have to work on. And then beyond that, it's just really a big question. Does Mike Pence have some wealthy benefactors who back a super PAC that can support him in Iowa? What about small dollar donors, getting those internet dollars, essentially, that Democrats and Donald Trump have been very good at getting? That's the kind of thing that you can watch and kind of gauge whether or not there's a groundswell of support for maybe some of these other candidates. Vivek Ramaswamy is one who is leaning into that. So that's the sort of fundraising story I'll be watching.
Yeah, and then let's look just real quickly at kind of the press, the flesh component. You got to connect with the people, and then you got to get the right people. You got to get those precinct chairs. You got to get people on the ground in all of those districts and so on. How is that playing out? That's an interesting area. Of course, President Trump was known for the big rallies. Governor DeSantis has had a little less than stellar track record in terms of the meet and greet and grip and grin component to campaigning. Who has the advantages there, especially looking at Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina?
It's an important aspect of it. It is one of those things that's probably necessary, but not sufficient in order to do well. At the end of the day, people in Iowa and New Hampshire have TVs. They have the internet. They're sort of influenced by the things that all the rest of us Americans are influenced by. But at the same time, it is an important part of what these candidates, again, can build on. And this is a question, there was a bit of a kerfuffle about Ron DeSantis kind of snapping at a reporter in New Hampshire earlier this week, who was asking why aren't you going to take questions from voters? And DeSantis sort of said, "I'm standing here right now talking to voters." But there was something a little deeper in that question, which was he hasn't had one of those town hall events, which are a very kind of particular type of event in New Hampshire. That in both parties, primary voters are kind of come to expect candidates to stand up there, take hard questions, get in almost a back and forth. I've seen it over several, presidential cycles that I've covered. That's something that DeSantis hasn't committed to yet. He's probably going to have to if he wants to do well. It's the kind of thing that voters in New Hampshire, very sophisticated, kind of come to expect. Yeah. You also look real quickly at Iowa. The social conservative base there, that's something that people like Tim Scott and Mike Pence are really looking at as do or die. That's their base. They want to perform really well there, and that's going to require being in front of people and being familiar.
Yeah, great insight, and we know that over the next 100 days there will be a lot of that last component you mentioned, which is kind of the message testing and preparing for a breakthrough moment, and we'll continue to watch that. I think you'll hear a lot of message testing over the summer, all gearing towards, as you mentioned, Michael, that debate in Milwaukee post Labor Day in August, when that, or just as we get to Labor Day there towards the end of August, that'll be kind of the next step for all of that. Michael Warren, grateful to have you on the program today. Great insight as always. Senior editor for the Dispatch. We look forward to having you back to continue the conversation as we move this all forward.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right, that's Michael Warren from the Dispatch. And so many things candidates have to do. You got to raise the money. You got to connect with the people. You got to get a message that's going to break through all the noise, and that's the big test. We'll continue to watch it. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's a shakeup of the Utah delegation to Washington.
Congressman Chris Stewart deciding to step down. The governor has to announce a special election schedule.
The seat will soon be vacant. This all sets the stage for a special election and new member of Congress. We're updating the story as it happens on KSL News Radio.
Well, with summer here, it's a great time to tap into the equity of your home, and Hercules Credit Union has just the thing that you need, especially for our KSL listeners. You can get a home equity line of credit through Hercules Credit Union. Mention that you heard it here on KSL News Radio. You get an introductory rate, 3.99% for the first 6 months of the loan. And we know as interest rates continue to creep up, this is the perfect time to both tap in and lock in a great rate for your home equity line of credit. Again, it's an introductory rate of 3.99% for the first 6 months of the loan. I know you have a lot of things you're looking at, and you can use your home equity line of credit for debt consolidation or a vacation, projects you've been wanting to do around the house. The important thing is you'll have access to your money anytime, anywhere. You get a Visa card that goes with it for easy access. All simple solutions from our friends at Hercules Credit Union. Check out their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, and Salt Lake City. Or as always, with our friends at Hercules Credit Union, you can find them online, HerculesCU.com.
It doesn't get better than summer camping in Utah, and it doesn't get any bigger than the Utah Summer RV Palooza, presented by Bish's RV. We're bringing the biggest RV show in the region to Layton, June 8th through the 10th. For 3 days only, the Layton Hills Mall is where you'll find a massive selection of top RV brands like Go Play, Ember RV, Forest River, Northwood, and a whole lot more. Get up to 20% below cost on select new 2022 RVs, and get 90 days no payments on approved credit for all play and no pay till September OAC. Summer RV Palooza is where you'll find a brand new 26BH travel trailer. It's high quality at an undeniable value at a sale price of only $19,995. The selection is huge, and so are the trade-in offers. Get max value for your current RV when you trade in at the show. Shop the Summer RV Palooza now at Bishes.com/Utah RV Palooza. 3 days only, June 8th through the 10th at the Layton Hills Mall. Sponsored by Bish's RV.
At aimyourdigital.com, we'll help you target the right audience, build your leads, and crush your quota. Take your business to the next level. Our digital marketing strategies help grow awareness of your product or service, all while building trust in your business. Our approach involves leveraging multiple tools and strategies to deliver exceptional results that are customized to your unique business needs. Don't wait to run out of sales leads. Keep your business growing. Get started with aimyourdigital.com today.
Join KSL and the Greenhouse Show this Saturday at the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District's 2023 Spring Garden Fair. The fair takes place at Weber Basin Water's Learning Garden at 2837 East Highway 193 in Layton. There will be activities for the whole family to enjoy as you see the garden and learn how you can have beautiful, low-water landscaping in your yard. There's information about all types of plants, drip irrigation, and other water-related education. Weber Basin Water this Saturday from 8 to 2. Free hot dogs, chips, cotton candy, and drinks for the whole family. There will be landscape experts on hand to answer all your gardening, lawn, and landscaping questions. See vendors, education booths, and a magic show happening 3 times during the fair, and prize drawings for participating in garden activities. Visit WeberBasin.com for more details. The event is free. We'll feed you lunch and help you learn something at this year's Weber Basin Water Conservancy District's 2023 Spring Garden Event. 2837 East Highway 193. We'll see you in the garden.
It's Free Frazzle Friday. Visit any participating location to get a 12-ounce cup of Frazzle slushie today. Go to freefrazzlefriday.com or download the Frazzle app for participating locations while supplies last.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
On February 6th, over 50,000 people perished in Turkey and Syria with a magnitude 7.8 and then a 7.5 earthquake struck. And in that kind of devastation, countries really find out who their friends are, who actually can step up, who can stand in, who can truly provide relief. One of those organizations that has been playing a significant role in the Turkey area and even into Syria is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we're very pleased to have joining us on the program today Bishop W. Christopher Waddell, first counselor in the presiding bishopric of the Church of Jesus Christ. And Bishop Waddell, thank you for joining us. And I know you actually had the opportunity recently to actually spend a couple of days in Turkey. And give us a little sense of what you saw on the ground.
Oh, absolutely. And Boyd, thank you for having me on to be able to share some of this. I was able to arrive in Turkey. We arrived on the 9th in Istanbul, and on the morning of the 10th, we flew into a city called Antakya, if I'm pronouncing that right, in Turkey. And it's in a region called the Hatay region. And it was just one city of many that were impacted. But the closest thing I could describe it to, Boyd, would be pictures that I've seen. Obviously, I wasn't there, but pictures I've seen of cities like Dresden, Germany, that were bombed in World War II. You know, we've seen those pictures and of just the total devastation. And that's the closest I can describe it to. By the time we got there, much of the areas had been cleaned up. Buildings that had collapsed entirely had been cleared out. And so you would see these large lots where buildings had been. And what wasn't down completely will have to be taken down, because all the buildings that were still standing looked like they had been they looked like they were a few hundred years old and in disrepair and falling apart, and they had been buildings that had been used just a few months before, the day before the earthquake, where people lived and people worked, and all of those buildings ultimately are going to have to be razed. Wow. Because they cannot be repaired.
Wow. And when you look at that kind of displacement of so many people at once. We know this is an area that's had a lot of refugees coming across from Syria anyway. As you saw that, give me some sense of the emotion of that. Some of those folks not only lost homes there, some of them were on their second or third temporary home. And now to have to begin and rebuild again. Give us a sense of your view of the people, what they're going through, how are they moving things forward?
You mentioned the Syrians in particular, and we had an opportunity to visit for lack of a better term, a tent city. And just let me back up a little bit on this, Boyd. The people that are displaced, and again, because of the destruction, virtually no one has a home to live in. And so there are people living in containers that are about 7 feet by 23 feet, and they can house up to 7 people. And there are container cities, and we visited one where there are probably 3,000 to 3,500 people, and these would be Turkish citizens for the most part. Mm-hmm. They have little inside these containers. They have small. They have a washer and dryer. They have a little kitchenette. They have places obviously for them to sleep, and that's primarily the Turkish citizens. The Syrians are, for the most part, in tent cities. Because there are not enough containers for everyone. They're looking for a few 100,000 containers. And so everyone, for the most part, is either in a tent or in containers. But these Syrians that you mentioned, these are people that fled Syria because of the civil war that was going on there. And they moved to Turkey and other places. But those that came to Turkey started in tent cities in Turkey before they were able to get their feet on the ground and get established and get into homes, apartment buildings. And not long after that, the earthquake hit, and now they're back in tents again. Oh. And so we visited one with about 2,000 inhabitants, maybe about 750 to 800 tents. And they do provide them with food, with water, fresh water, because all the infrastructure has been destroyed for the most part. And so there's very little drinking water available. And so you have huge trucks bringing in loads of bottles of drinking water for them. They have areas for mental health, tents established where people can talk to them that are suffering from trauma through all of this. It really is a remarkable thing. They're, watching the children running around and playing and not realizing what's going on. And you see some of the despair in the parents' eyes, wanting to provide for their families and not really being able to. There's no place for them to work. And there's no place else to go other than the tents. But they're surviving, and eventually they're going to have places to live, containers. They're going to move them in, and the government's working to start building again homes and apartment buildings for people to move into. But it's going to be a few years before that happens.
Yeah, talk about the ultimate test of resilience. I think that is an amazing testament to just to that resilience of the human spirit. And as you were talking, Bishop Waddell, I was thinking of there's a saying that beginning empty-handed and alone frightens the best of us, but it also shows how confident you are in God and in the future. And I know as part of your visit there to Turkey that you were able to help provide relief and to give them some hope. Give us a sense of the scope. I think it's hard for people to really appreciate the extent of the relief being shared through the church and through partner organizations, but help us get a picture of that.
Turkey is found within the area called the Europe Central area, and in every area of the world has an area welfare manager, and that works under the direction of the Welfare and Self-Reliant Services Department at headquarters. And so the area welfare manager out of Europe Central had already been on the ground in Turkey. And I have to mention this part of it that was really kind of interesting to see the hand of the Lord in this. There's a couple, the Hubers, they're from Switzerland, and they're serving as service missionaries in the Europe Central area. And Brother Huber was a Peter Huber, is his name, and he had been responsible in Switzerland for emergency relief in Switzerland, and he was an expert on how to provide relief during earthquakes or following an earthquake, and what to do and how to reach out and in emergency response. And it just so happens he was in the Europe Central area. He'd only been there a few weeks, and he was dispatched to Turkey and was able to speak to government employees. They knew who he was. They knew his background, and doors were opened to have the church provide relief. It had been a number of years that Turkey had actually turned down church relief for perhaps religious reasons, primarily a Muslim country. But because of Peter Huber going in, the church was allowed to come in and provide assistance. And so at this point, it's been multi-million dollars of assistance, primarily in food, water, hygiene. But in addition to that, the church is providing some of the containers. I was able to sign an agreement with them while we were there to provide 500 containers, and we're looking at many more, and that's just a start. But in addition to that, we met with an organization. It's AFAD. They pronounce it AFAD, and that's their version of FEMA. It's their national agency relief organization, and we were able to meet with them in their headquarters and share with them what we were doing, and they were able to share with us and show us what the church had done and where the resources had gone to help. In particular, we provided some mobile medical clinics in areas where hospitals had been destroyed, and so we were able to go and visit one of those and to see how that's working in areas where, again, they had no hospital service at all. They asked for another one, and we were able to meet with the organization that provides those and pay for those, and they'll have a fifth that will be put up very soon in areas where they just don't have the medical help.
Oh, that's so important. And I want to back up just a second, Bishop Waddell, because I want our listeners to just recognize what you just described with this Brother Huber and having a relationship. We often talk about the difference between a transaction and a relationship is so vast. And this is a classic example of, had this just been a transaction between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Turkey government, it wasn't really happening. But when there's a relationship, then everything changes. And I think that's an important part of the way the church does humanitarian aid, does provide relief, is that it's not just a transaction of a container or goods or whatever it might be. It's about building those relationships. We know there's been over $13.5 million in aid as of early April on those 20 relief projects. But give us a sense, Bishop Waddell, in terms of some of those relationships and some of the things you're seeing moving forward that are going to be a continuing part of how the church doesn't just provide it as a transaction, but sticks around and stays when things get really hard over the long haul.
Well, actually, it's interesting. That was one of the things they talked about in Turkey, and recognizing that the church will be there, that we will continue with them. We met in the first area we met in Antakya. We met with some government officials there. There are a number of areas. They're called assistant governors is their title in English. But their concern was that we might be there and then take off. And they're seeing that we have staying power there because of those relationships. And they expressed great appreciation knowing that we are continuing. It wasn't one of those items where we came in and said, here's some help. The fact that we continue to be there months after and we continue to work with them on other items going forward, looking at additional containers, looking at even the tents, looking at additional medical facilities. There's even one aspect of this, and I think this is part of the relationship that they shared I thought was really sweet. When we asked what else can we do, they mentioned that on June 28th, for whatever reason, that date has special meaning in Turkey, but that's a day in Turkey where all children receive a new set of clothing, and they put new clothing on all over the country. And they said that this year the children will be sad because they won't have that. And so they turned to us to see, is there anything you can do about that? And so because of our humanitarian efforts and what we have in Salt Lake at the Humanitarian Center, working with members in Europe and gathering these, we're looking at ways that we can provide clothing, probably not for every child in Turkey, but for thousands of children who wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity. And they got a little emotional when we mentioned that we would be happy to help with something like this, to be able to bless the children who who really are suffering and have so little. Many are orphans, having lost parents in the earthquakes. But the fact that we have that relationship and that they know we'll be there, it really makes a tremendous difference.
We're going to stay with the conversation just a little bit longer. Stick around. We're going to come back with Christopher Waddell, member of the presiding bishop, first counselor in the presiding bishopric of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. More not only on his trip to Turkey and relief there, but other relief projects around the world. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stay with us.
It's 2:31 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Rescue teams warning people to be aware of dangers around streams and rivers, especially with water levels expected to peak within the next few weeks in the creeks in Sandy City. KSL News Radio's Hugo Rickard Bell has more.
Cold, swift currents coupled with the number of hikers on the trails is putting rescue teams in Sandy on high alert, particularly around Bell Canyon Waterfall. When wet, the granite is very slick, and any attempt to walk near the waterfall's edge or jump the falls could result in severe injury or death.
Their advice, steer clear of the water for now until the current dies down later in the summer. Spring runoff has brought some much-needed relief to lakes and reservoirs in Utah, but it's also provided a lot more breeding area for mosquitoes. Gary Hatch with the Davis Mosquito Abatement District tells KSL-TV they're being stretched thin with all the new ground to cover.
We more than tripled the number of acres that we normally spray in May just because of the large number of adults we were seeing.
On top of the usual floodwater mosquitoes, they're now starting to see the species that carries West Nile virus. Hatch says they're going to have to try to eliminate standing water at properties this summer. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Dozens of people feared dead after a train derailment in India. 170 have been injured. As many as 200 may still be trapped in the wreckage. One passenger train reportedly derailed and another crashed into it. This happened at Balasore in eastern India. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing the trading day up 701 points. NASDAQ was up 139, the S&P 500 up 61. And our KSL weather, looks like we're going to see another thunderstorm tonight or today and for the next several days. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:33.
Start your days with knowledgeable, friendly voices telling you about the latest news and weather out there.
Hi, this is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
In the business of waking you up each morning from 5 to 9.
On KSL News Radio.
Hey, this is Dan, the laptop man from PC Laptops. A lot of customers have been calling us mentioning that their old version of Windows is asking them to upgrade to Windows 11. It's super important to be running Windows 11 on any PC for performance and security. If you're running some of the older versions of Windows, you could be open to hackers, viruses, spyware, and all kinds of insane, evil things. Just bring in your PC, no matter what brand it is, into PC Laptops right now, and we can verify if your computer is Windows 11 ready. If it's not ready, we might be able to upgrade it for you or just take it on trade-in. We also will scan your computer for viruses and other bad things. We'll also give it a physical cleaning, absolutely free. So get into PC Laptops right now and go to PCLaptops.com. That's PCLaptops.com. Lots of love at PCLaptops.com.
Getting close to retirement? Or have you retired? You've probably got a ton of stress-filled questions on your mind. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth. Getting a second opinion with an individualized investment plan is vital, and our fiduciary advisors do just that. Take it from this Trajan Wealth client.
It was just so pleasant, so comfortable. I think we had 7 different accounts, just stuff scattered all over the place. And then so we just started, here's this, move this. And he even explained it a couple different times. But if I have more questions, he said, just give us a call. And that's what I love. He's a phone call away. I'm glad I know these guys. Such a huge weight off my shoulder.
Imagine not second-guessing investments or monthly retirement income. That's the peace of mind you'll get from working with Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600 today or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Actual client, no compensation, no conflicts. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union, helping members since 1935. Here's Ricky Meese.
Rain delays on I-15 in Davis County. The southbound side stretches from Layton all the way to Lagoon. And we also have an accident southbound I-15 near North Temple on the descent into Salt Lake City. It's been moved to the right. UDOT construction alert. Plan for delays on Highway 89 in Davis County this weekend. Highway 89 will be reduced to one lane in both directions Friday night through Monday morning from South Weber to Layton for paving. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, more showers today with thunderstorms in the afternoon. The pattern of afternoon storms will continue into next week. Right now, 72 degrees, mostly cloudy at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. This is Utah's all-day companion for news.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We're continuing my conversation with Bishop Christopher Waddell, first counselor in the presiding bishopric for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, about the church's humanitarian work in Turkey. He recently visited there. I asked Bishop Waddell if there was anything else that we should be thinking about when it comes to Turkey.
One of the items, I think anything that people donate to the humanitarian fund of the church, where obviously the donations that come in from members of the church throughout the world are used wisely, and in this particular case through these different organizations in Turkey. And there's some things we're doing not just directly with the Turkish government, but you mentioned relationships. One of the things we recognize that as a church worldwide, globally, we're not large, from a population standpoint. And so we recognize that the resource that we have, we're not always able to get them to some of the places where they need to go. And so we have relationships with organizations such as World Food Program, as an example, where we've made donations, and they're on the ground, and they can get to places where we really can't get because we just don't have the infrastructure. And so we're able to work with them. And the Red Cross, we just had a meeting yesterday with Gail McGovern, who's the CEO of Red Cross, who was expressing appreciation for what the church does. And so it's these relationships that we have with larger NGOs that we're able to vet, and we know they're good, and they can get to places, and they can do things that we just can't do. And so we work with them on very specific kind of issues, such as what's happening in Turkey right now. And so for those who are listening, the people there are, just because the earthquake is over, it doesn't mean the people aren't suffering, and they still are facing tremendous challenges. And you even mentioned, they talked about 50,000 deaths. They actually believe that the death toll could be well over 1 million. They just don't have a way to count everyone because of the incredible destruction that took place. Wow. And so there are many people who aren't in homes, who are in tents, who are in containers, and they're hanging on, and they're surviving because of the donations and the support that others can make, including those from the church.
So important, and we often talk about doing something that makes a difference. That never underestimate any help that can be offered, or aid rendered, or something donated, or contribution, how that can be magnified and really leveraged. And Bishop Waddell, I want to expand just a little bit the conversation as part of a worldwide church, looking at so many different areas around the world that need relief. Give us a sense of some of the relationships that you have built and some of the impact the church has been able to have for areas all around the world.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned the World Food Program, and that's a tremendous agency. It's a UN agency that is all over. Their goal is to put themselves out of business. In other words, that there wouldn't be anyone that is lacking food, that goes hungry. And so we have a very close working relationship with them when there are issues around the world. We also work, as I mentioned, with the Red Cross, but there are other organizations. Water for People is another organization that looks to provide clean drinking water in areas around the world, in sub-Saharan Africa and in other organizations. We work with medical organizations as well, organizations called MedGlobal and others, where they go to areas. I remember I visited a site in the Caribbean where it was the International Medical Group, International Medical Corporation, IMC, And they were in the Bahamas after they had some tremendous earthquakes there, or not earthquakes, but typhoons and hurricanes, and where things had been wiped out, and they were looking for medication and medicinal supplies, and we were there to help provide that for them. And so whatever the needs are, we have the opportunity to assist. And one other thing that's happening, I mentioned the Europe Central area. The church is divided into 14 international areas around the world, and each area has an area presidency. And a lot of the work that's being done from a humanitarian standpoint is being directed locally in those areas. The area presidencies and each area welfare manager is able to look to provide support and assistance in the various areas around the world, whether it's Europe or Asia or Africa or Latin America, to provide that assistance. One other thought, if I may mention, the Relief Society General Presidency of the Church has been given responsibility by the First Presidency to do what they can to alleviate malnutrition amongst member children around the world and those who are not members of the church. But they're starting in places like the Philippines, where the children aren't hungry, but they're malnourished in many cases, where their stomachs are full of rice, but they're not getting the nutrition they need. And so we're working with organizations to teach and train and help parents to know how to provide the appropriate nutrition for their children, not just to fill their stomachs. And so those are the kind of things that are taking place around the world that aren't really publicized anywhere, but are happening everywhere.
That's so important, and that principle, to me, it's the ultimate of the old biblical story of the widow's mite. And I've often thought that we miss a vast majority of that story. I'm pretty sure before the widow went to cast her mite in, she probably stopped off at a neighbor that was sick and delivered a loaf of bread to a new mother, and it might have been her turn to sweep and clean up the synagogue. And her donation was sort of the last thing. It was an extension of who she was. But she was also really wise because she could have just given her mite to someone in need, and that would have been a transaction. But she recognized that combining it, bringing it together, would expand it and multiply it and extend the reach to many others. And I think the widow was very wise in not looking for a transaction, which might have made her feel good for a moment, but to be part of a greater story. And I think that's what the presiding bishopric, what we've seen through the Relief Society as well. I think those are all crucial components that have a global reach that I think many don't see, because it's not in front of cameras and spotlights, but it's the hard work and heavy lifting of serving your fellow man and helping a neighbor in need.
Boyd, you mentioned the widow's mite. Just a quick thought about that. We recognize that the donations that come to the church from church members around the world are sacred. And there are large donations, there are small donations. There is the widow's mite, and that's real, that takes place. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that as we use those resources from a humanitarian standpoint, that we're not just writing a check to anyone who says we need help, but that we work with organizations that we have vetted very carefully, that can get resources to places that we just don't have the infrastructure to get it to. And we then follow up with them, whether it happens to be, immunizations for malaria. That's one that's coming up through the UN, through UNICEF. They've had some situations where they've asked, or whether it is getting food to where it needs to get through the World Food Program, or organizations such as ADRA, which is the Seventh-day Adventist Relief Organization, or Catholic Relief Services. There are wonderful organizations that we can trust, that we've worked with. And we know that these resources, the widow's mite that we care for here and we have a responsibility for, actually gets to where it needs to be and is not wasted. It would be, again, very easily just to write checks everywhere. But we want to make sure that the resources get to where they need to get and bless the lives they are meant to bless.
Bishop Christopher Waddell, we appreciate you so much taking time with us today as first counselor in the presiding bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and your important work in doing what we challenge people to do every day, do something that makes a difference. This is a great example from Turkey and all around the world. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, Boyd, thank you for having us on and for all the work you're doing. We appreciate it very much.
Stay with us. Coming up as we close out graduation season, an inspiring graduation speech from Skyridge High School. You don't want to miss this one. Final thoughts on a Friday coming up. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Smart, connected, modern. Discover life-enhancing independent living services at Trio Orem. Joy isn't just for the young, it's for the young at heart. Trio's signature programs provide a unique approach to wellness, bringing living well and well-being to life. Trio is reimagining retirement to deliver delight in every detail. To learn more, contact Trio Orem at 801-434-8000 or visit treeoorem.com.
Here's what happens when you get brand new custom vinyl windows from Advanced Window Products. All of a sudden, your house has more curb appeal. Your home is more secure. Your heating and air conditioning bills tumble, and you have a local company in business 37 years standing behind their work for life. But that's not all. Since they build your custom windows at their facility in Salt Lake, there's no middleman markup. So you can save money on the highest quality windows on the market. Argon-filled double pane glass. Insulation within the vinyl framing. Top of the line, built to spec. They will create magnificent bow windows, doggy doors cut into the glass. Any color, it's all custom, all installed by their team, and every window is guaranteed for life. Rocky Mountain and Dominion offer rebates. Advanced Windows offers 60-month, 0% financing, and right now, save $2,000 on 10 windows or more. So save now, pay later. Call Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or visit advancedwindowsusa.com.
Our state's children face a serious threat from the vaping industry, but thanks to state leaders and the Utah Health Department, Utah established the strictest nicotine standards for vaping in the United States to protect our kids. However, the vaping industry sued, claiming their sales and profits are down. Now they're pushing the health department to hand control of vaping regulations to the federal government. We can't allow that to happen. The proposed change would automatically increase nicotine levels in vape pens and reintroduce fruity flavors that entice our kids back into Utah convenience stores. Visit StopKidsVaping.com today and make your voice heard. Utah should maintain state control, preserve our 3% nicotine limitations, and prevent vaping flavors from returning to Utah convenience stores. Together, we can secure a better future for our children. Join us at StopKidsVaping.com and tell the health department, protect our kids.
Paid for by Prosperous Utah Communities.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family. Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Hey, Derek Overstreet here from the New Millennium Group, financial advisors in Utah. You know, I've been helping people retire in the state of Utah for the last 20 years. The way we do that is we actually find out what is important to you. We create a step-by-step plan that takes into consideration your income, your debt, whether you want money from real estate, stock market, annuities, life insurance, whatever. If you want to deal with professionals, people that are fiduciaries and have a legal responsibility and obligation to do what's in your best interest, give my team a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Or go to my website, utahsfinancialplanner.com. If you'd like to retire 3 to 5 years before you thought it was possible, give my team a call right now. 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370.
It's Free Frazzle Friday. Visit any participating location to get a 12-ounce cup of Frazzle slushie today. Go to freefrazzlefriday.com or download the Frazzle app for participating locations while supplies last.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you on a Friday, as it is every day. I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the week, as we come to an end of graduation season, of course, we're always looking for some of those inspiring moments, and we actually had one at Skyridge High School. Principal John Walwork gave just an inspiring, very emotional speech. Someone who's been in the business of education for well over 24 years. And I want to go to some of the things that he said, and who he called out is so important, and how he did it that I think was really inspiring. So we want to close out our week with a few little clips here. So we want to start with, again, Skyridge Principal John Walwork. He began by saying that he's learned more from his students than they've learned from him.
Skyridge community, this is my 24th year in education. The reason I got into this was so that I could make a positive impact on the lives of young people. What I've learned after 24 years is the exact opposite. That these young people have had a tremendous impact on my life.
I love that. And then he went into some very compelling stories of students. The first student he called out was Jenny from Haiti. Listen to her story.
First, Jenny Joussain, please stand. Born in Haiti and raised there till the age of 15, Jenny's parents made a difficult decision to remove her from Haiti's danger and unrest and sent her to the safety of the U.S. with Amethyst, a trusted friend here in Lehigh. Jenny arrived here not speaking any English, only Creole and French, as she hasn't been back to Haiti nor seen her parents and siblings since she left 3 years ago. While here, Jenny has thrived, participating in track, dance, choir, French. She's taken a number of AP courses. Jenny received a scholarship to attend Utah Valley University, where she plans to major in engineering, French, and dance. Jenny's dream is to open up dance studios in third world countries for disadvantaged kids who otherwise couldn't afford dance classes. Jenny, merci beaucoup.
I love that he calls out each of these students in their native language, again, showing just how deeply he sees them. He next called out a student who was the first in his family to graduate from high school.
Eliasi Tonga Tukuafu, please stand. Son of Kalani, his mother. Eli's father, Finau Tukuafu, passed away his sophomore year. Eli's the oldest of 5 siblings, will be the first to graduate from high school. Eli's parents wanted him at Skyridge for better education and better influences. He first stayed in Lehigh with a supportive uncle and auntie Mahe, then moved back home to Salt Lake when his dad passed to help his mom. In the span of several months, Eli lost his grandpa, his dad, his uncle, who he was named after, and 2 cousins from the Hunter High School shooting. For a while, Eli took the train from Salt Lake City every morning to Thanksgiving Point so he could attend Skyridge. He's been involved with football, lacrosse, wrestling, boys volleyball, and our Polynesian club. Eli plans to attend Utah Valley University to major in criminal justice in hopes of becoming a police officer. Eliasi, Maloa Pito.
Next, he called out a student from Mexico.
Georgina Diaz, please stand. Georgina is the daughter of Valentina and Carlos Torres Diaz, who moved their family to the U.S. from Mexico to provide a better life for their 5 children. They moved to Utah when Georgina was in 7th grade. Georgina is bilingual and biliterate, holds a GPA of 3.9, with a lot of AP and other college-level classes on her schedule. Through MTech, she will finish with a certificate as a pharmacy technician. She's active in our FCCLA and qualified for nationals in July. She works 2 20-hour jobs at Marshall's and at Walmart, thus frequently needing to do her homework in the early AM hours. Her paycheck helps her family with food and bills. Georgina received the Eccles Full Ride Scholarship to attend the University of Utah, majoring in biomedical engineering and biochemistry in hopes of being an anesthesiologist. Georgina, muchísimas gracias por su ejemplo.
And finally, he turned to student Lincoln Perkins, who had a unique connection to Skyridge.
Lincoln Perkins, please stand. Son of Joel and Summer Perkins, Lincoln's dad, Dr. Perkins, was the first principal here at Skyridge, opened the school, created a vision and mission of this school. Dr. Perkins wanted to create a school, an environment, and culture where Lincoln and other students could be included and thrive. And that's what Lincoln has done. He has thrived. Lincoln has been active and involved in our unified sports teams of soccer, basketball, volleyball, track. He's a key member of our jazz and marching bands. He plays the bass electric guitar, the upright bass. He plays and he's also teaching himself to play the guitar, the violin, and the piano. Lincoln also writes music. He's earned a 3.9 GPA while at Skyridge with some advanced and AP courses. Lincoln is planning to go to Alpine Tech and also Utah Valley University to follow and achieve his music dreams.
And then finally, it wouldn't be possible, those 5 extraordinary students from across the world and all kinds of backgrounds. Of course, none of that happens without extraordinary teachers. And John Walwork, the principal, took a moment to call out one of his retiring teachers with an honorary diploma.
Miss Harrison has taught in the classroom for 30 years, the last 22 in the Alpine School District. When Valerie was a young girl attending Kearns High School, due to family circumstances, she had to drop out of high school and get a full-time job to support her family and herself. She later attended Ricks College without a diploma. After a year at Ricks and a 3.8 GPA, she decided to go to BYU. Without a diploma, she couldn't. Valerie quickly obtained her GED and then went to BYU. She later graduated from BYU and started her teaching career. Ms. Harrison, we wanted to award you an honorary diploma from Skyridge High School. So now you are a retiree and an alumni of Skyridge High School. Congratulations, Ms. Harrison.
All right, all of that coming from the graduation at Skyridge High School and Principal John Walwork. That, my friends, is what leadership in education sounds like. Someone who understands what that day means, someone who can see not just a mass of students moving through, not people just checking boxes and going on to the next step, but people who have unique stories. You talk about someone coming from Haiti as a 15-year-old. I can't even imagine that, and then to be taking AP courses and scholarships and on through each of those stories, to me is an extraordinary thing. And the most important thing is that while we have to have government to fund and make sure the baselines of all of that is taken care of in terms of rooms and buildings and supplies, where all of those stories you just heard from a very inspired and inspiring principal came through teachers, through individuals, and through people who were just determined to make a difference. And that's how community happens. And that's why even on a week like this, where we can be pessimistic about the politics and the process, I've never been more bullish on the future of the country. Big kudos to Skyridge Principal and High School, John Walwork. Great stuff today. All right, that rounds out our week on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. And as always, as you go out into the world today,